What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and we are back with another video. This time, another Hot 10 list for this week. Of course, these books can be found over on the Key Collector app. Gives us some great information that we're going to dive into. But before that, like always, I want you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me, guys. If you are not a current subscriber of the channel, this is where you can see when I post new content. And of course, I want you to go ahead and like this video if you enjoy it and enjoy some of my other content. But without further ado, let's jump in at number 10 this week. It is a copy of Marvel Premiere number 28, the first appearance of the Legion of Monsters. Now, I will say this book was on the list last week, and I gave it a big thumbs up. I'd be going out and buying this week. I'm not going to change my mind on this. However, a CGC 9.4 this week sold for $716, which is, to me, is a little bit of a high price. I'd be picking up this book anywhere from an 8.0 higher. I don't think you need to pick it up in a 9.4, 9.6, 9.8, but if you can find a nice clean copy for a nice price, I would still pick this book up. Coming in at number 9 this week is a copy of Daredevil number 2. Really awesome cover. Believe it or not, this is the second appearance of Electro. We know he will show up in the next Spiderman movie, No Way Home. Of course, this is also Daredevil number 2 as well, a beautiful Silver Age book. A CGC 5.0 sold this week for $800. I don't mind picking up this book at all. I'm probably not spending $800 on this key issue, but if you can get one at a nice grade for a nice undervalued price, I'd pick it up. I'm probably not spending $800 for a 5.0, I'm just being honest, but I would still pick this book up, so I'm going to give it a thumbs up if you can add it for a nice price. Coming in at number 8 is a copy of Star Wars Clone Wars variant. Anybody who watches my channel knows that I don't do a lot of modern books, and I certainly don't do a lot of Star Wars books. I think the Star Wars hype is a little bit overdone, especially for these modern variant covers. Now, this book was limited to 1,000 copies, so I know it is in, very high demand, and you can't really find these issues. But this book sold at a CGC 9.8 last week for $16,000, which to me is insane. I don't know how anyone would spend that kind of money on this book. I know it's rare, but to me, if you're going to spend that kind of money, why not put it to a book that will last the test of time? You want to get a nice Silver Age appearance of, you can get a Hulk 1 for $16,000. You can get a high-grade Incredible Hulk 181. I know it's a Bronze Age book, but if you really are a Wolverine fan, I'd rather put that money to that book or those books only for the fact that I know where they're going long-term. I don't know where this book is going long-term. I know, like I said, it's rare. But I don't think we should be spending that kind of money on this book. But that's just my opinion, guys. Coming in at number 7 is a copy of G.I. Joe number 21, the first appearance of Storm Shadow. With the Snake Eyes movies coming out, who knows if Storm Shadow will appear in that movie? I was a little bit of a G.I. Joe fan growing up as a kid, not a huge one. I was more of a Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Transformers. But either way, a CGC 8.0 of this book sold for $400 this week. To me, I'm not a buyer here at those prices. I know some hardcore G.I. Joe fans might be picking up this book because they enjoy it, and that's 100% fine. But for me, I'm not spending the $400 on this book, so that's a no-go for me, guys. Coming in at number 6 this week is a copy of Daredevil number 131, the first appearance of Bullseye. Awesome yellow cover book, one of my favorite Daredevil covers. A CGC 9.0 sold for this week for $515. I don't think that's bad. Considering that Daredevil will eventually show up in the MCU or Disney Plus series, and it's only a matter of time before we do see Bullseye, so I am still a buyer of this book at this price. However, I am sticking at 9.0 or higher. I probably wouldn't go lower than that. So if you want to pick up this book, you gotta lay out the cash over $500 to pick up a 9.0 copy. That's just my opinion. It's a higher grade on these newer books. Coming in at number 5 is a copy of XFactor number 6. The first appearance of Apocalypse. Now, this book had been forgotten forever, up until probably the last year or so, and a CGC 9.8 recently sold last month for $1,400. To me, that's a little bit crazy for this book. I mean, you could have had a 9 point something at some point raw for probably 20-something bucks at some point. Now a 9.8 graded copy is going for $1,400. I don't know about that, guys. I'm not spending $1,400, and I do think you need to go ahead and buy a 9.8 if you buy this book. I wouldn't settle for anything less than that because there are a lot of copies out there, and this was in a dollar bin forever. Now, all of a sudden, with the last couple of years, with the way comics have gone, of course, it's a little bit of a spec. A modern book, a copper age book. Really not worth $1,400 to me at a 9.8, but that's just my opinion. If you do want a copy, go out and get one at a 9.8 though. Don't settle for anything less than that. Coming in at number 4 is a copy of Primer number 2, The First Grendel and Hunter Rose. Now, I am personally not familiar with this book, so I'm not going to give you too much information on it. However, a CGC 9.2 sold this week for $1,320, which to me is a lot of money. So if you have experience with this book, I can't tell you whether or not to go ahead and buy it. So this is like a no contest for me. It's not a thumbs up or a thumbs down because I'm just not really familiar with it. But if you're into this stuff and think it's worth the money, then go ahead and pick it up. If you don't, then I'd stay away from it. At number 3 this week is one of my all-time favorite covers, Amazing Spider-Man number 9 and the first appearance of Electro. This is the second time we've seen Electro on this Hot 10 list. That tells me it is worth picking up. A CGC 2.0 recently sold last week for $930, which to me is still a fair price for a Silver Age major Spider-Man villain. I do think if Marvel does him justice in the next Spider-Man movie, that this book will go up in value. It is always a solid buy for me. I always thought Electro was a pretty cool character when I was growing up, and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 just didn't really do it for me, and it sent that book plummeting. Now, of course, with rumors that Jamie Foxx is going to reprise his role, and it actually has been confirmed, this book has picked up steam. Once we see him in a new costume in No Way Home, I still think this book is going to go higher. This is a thumbs up for me, guys. I'll be picking it up. I personally have 2 copies of this book, so keep that in mind. Also low grade. At number 2 this week is a copy of a Marvel Spotlight number 3, the second appearance of Werewolf by Night. Now, this CGC 8.0 recently sold last week for $280. To me, I don't think that's a bad price, considering that the first appearance of Werewolf by Night is a little bit more expensive. I personally have a 6.0 or a 6.5 I picked up for like a couple $100 years ago. I think now it's a little bit rarer to find that book, and that, of course, is Marvel Spotlight number 2. But they can be found. I'd probably be putting the money towards the first appearance rather than the second appearance. That's just my opinion, guys. For $300 for an 8.0, I know it's a really nice high-grade copy. If I'm going to spend $280, I'll save a little bit more, maybe get to that $600, $650 mark and buy a mid-grade copy of Marvel Spotlight number 2. So this, like most second appearances, for me, is a don't buy. But, as always, I throw a caveat out there. If you can get it at a really good price, I always pick up second appearances if I can get them for a deal. That's just my opinion. That's how I collect, and that's the information that I pass along to you guys. So, with that said, we are back at number 1, and for the second week in a row, this book has appeared at the number 1 spot. It is Avengers number 8, the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. We are starting to see where Marvel is going with this character, and this book is skyrocketing right now. However, I've been on a few claim sales recently, and I've seen this book been listed a couple of times and people not pull the trigger at full price, and that's where I am standing. If you can get this book for a deal, then I'm all for it. But if you have to pay, fair market value or book value for this book right now, I would not do it. I would kind of hold off. It is really, really just gone bananas. I actually sold my 5.0 copy recently just to secure some profits in that book. I kind of wish I still had it back, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure where this book is going to go. I mentioned in the last video that we may see a drop-off at some point, just like we saw it with Iron Man 55 and the first appearance of Thanos. An awesome book to own. I would love to have it on my PC, but you got to weigh the risk versus reward on this book. So if it's a PC book and you can get one for a deal, go ahead and snag it. If you have to pay up for it, I'd probably wait to see what happens down the line. I know he will be in quite a few movies, and we'll see iterations of Kang. And for all the comic lovers out there, you know what I mean. But when we actually get Kang, and I don't think we're actually going to see him until probably to the end of one movie and then in Quantumania, that's when we're really going to see the hype go crazy. So if you can find it for a deal, go ahead and snag it. But if you can't, I'd hold off. That's it for the Hot 10 for this week, guys. It is, again, there's some really banging books on these lists recently. A few modern books this week that I really wasn't familiar with, and a crazy one on that Star Wars book for 16 grand. Like always, do your research. Go on GPA, go on eBay, see what these things have been selling for, and try to get deals on these books if you want them. So, that's it for this video. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.